and I will be reviewing and talking about the film A Resistance. It was directed by Cho Min-ho and it was released in February 27th, 2019. The cast we see the main character Go An-sung as Yoo Gwon-soon, Kim Se-byuk as Kim Hyung-hwa, Kim Ye-eun as Kwon Era, Jung Ha-dam as Lee Ok-ki, and Ryu Gyung-soo as Nishida, one of the Japanese soldiers. It was set during the Japanese colonial period, most specifically the March 1st movement, and the movie was mostly filmed in black and white. The background history of the film, as we see in the March 1st movement, it was a series of peaceful protests against the Japanese colonial rule throughout Korea. It started on March 1st, 1919, and despite the peaceful protests, they were frequently violently suppressed, with casualties of 7,509 deaths and 46,948 arrests. This movement invigorated the Korean independence movement and resulted in the creation of the Korean Provisional Government. The anniversary of the movement has been celebrated ever since, and it is now a national holiday. We also see the Japanese colonial rule, which started in 1910, where Japan formally annexed Korea until 1945. They started making changes and began a process of Japanization, where they forced cultural assimilation. It ultimately led to functionally banning the use of Korean names and the Korean language. The land was confiscated from Koreans and given to Japanese people, and economic and administrative systems were created that were systemically discriminatory. A little background on the main character, Yoo Gwon-soon. She was a Korean independence activist, and she is notable for her role in South Chungcheong during the March 1st movement protests and became a symbol ever since of the March 1st movement. She planned a demonstration that took place on April 1st, 1919 at Aone Marketplace, where around 3,000 demonstrators chanted, "Long live Korean independence." But by 1 p.m., the Japanese military arrived, shot and killed 19 people, including Yu's parents. Yu was then arrested. She refused to cooperate in prison and received heavy torture. On March 1st, 1920, Yu planned a large-scale protest with her fellow inmates to mark the movement's first anniversary, and as a result, she was held separately from other inmates. She passed away on September 28, 1920, due to injuries sustained from torture and beatings in prison. Now, the synopsis of this film: it was during the Japanese colonial period, and Yoo Gwon-soon led the March 1st movement and was imprisoned. The film focuses on her time in Sodaemun prison, where she continued her resistance despite enduring severe torture and punishment. The Japanese security chief, suspicious of unrest, tricks her colleagues and uncovers Gwon-soon's role as a leader and tortures her severely. So she then pretends to obey the Japanese while secretly preparing another independence movement. The movement spread even beyond the prison, and Gwon-soon was subjected to merciless torture. She died 2 days before her release. What I learned from this film, and what stood out to me the most, was the harsh and cruel brutality that Yoo Gwon-soon faced. Seeing it portrayed in such vivid detail made it feel real. Her courage, despite the physical abuse and isolation, was incredibly inspiring. She never lost her resolve, and even through pain and near-death experiences, she stood firm in her beliefs. That's what really moved me, her unyielding determination. She proved that resistance doesn't require weapons, just unwavering belief. Something I also learned was that even in the darkest times, hope can survive, and sometimes all it takes is one voice to spark a movement. It made me reflect on the meaning of freedom, the cost of independence, and how easily we take our rights for granted today. Yoo Gwon-soon's story is not just a piece of Korean history, it's a universal story about fighting for justice even when the odds are overwhelming. The legacy that Yoo Gwon-soon left, she became known as Korea's Joan of Arc. In the wake of Yu's death and the demonstrations, the Japanese colonial authority did loosen some of its rules, even if the March 1st movement did not instantly guarantee Korea's independence. Yu then became a symbol of the Korean independence movement because, despite being arrested, she never wavered from her beliefs. And now, with the help of South Korean Chungcheong province and the city of Cheonan, a shrine was constructed in Yu's honor following Korea's independence. Yu is honored with an award in South Chungcheong province, and here we see an image of one of the statues that was made in honor of her. A quote that she wrote in prison that really stood out to me was, "Even if my fingernails are torn out, my nose and ears are ripped apart, and my legs and arms are crushed, this physical pain does not compare to the pain of losing my nation. My only remorse is not being able to do more than dedicating my life to my country." Thank you for watching, and I highly recommend watching the film A Resistance if you haven't yet.